You're 19 years old. You've led armies, defied kings, and claimed your visions come from God himself. Now you're in chains, accused of witchcraft and heresy. Before you stands a court determined to destroy you, and outside an execution awaits. This is the true story of Joan of Arc's final days. A trial that was part courtroom drama, part political assassination. But was she a martyr or a witch? In this episode, we'll walk through Joan's capture, her brutal imprisonment, the infamous trial at Rouen, and her shocking execution in 1431. We'll expose the political forces that condemned her, hear her words from the trial transcripts, and witness how history reversed her fate decades later. Stay until the end, because Joan's story didn't die in the flames. It rose from the ashes to inspire the world for centuries to come. By the end of this video, you'll know what truly happened in that courtroom, why the English needed Joan silenced, and how she became one of the most enduring symbols of courage and conviction in history. It was May 23, 1430. The 100 Years' War had raged for nearly a century between France and England. Joan of Arc, a teenage peasant girl who claimed divine visions, had turned the war in France's favor. She had broken the siege of Orléans, led bold military campaigns, and escorted Charles VII to Reims for his coronation. But at Compiègne, her luck ran out. While trying to defend the city, Joan was thrown from her horse and surrounded by Burgundian troops, French allies of the English. Her capture was no accident. It was the result of betrayal and political calculation. Within months, she was sold to the English for 10,000 livres, an enormous ransom at the time. This was not a prisoner of war exchange. This was a purchase with one purpose: to destroy her publicly. Joan was taken to Rouen, the English administrative capital in France. Instead of being placed in a church prison guarded by nuns, she was kept in a military cell, watched day and night by English soldiers. She was chained to her bed, wrists and ankles shackled, with guards even in her cell while she slept. These conditions were not just harsh, they were intended to break her spirit. Yet reports say Joan remained calm, speaking politely to her guards, spending hours in prayer, and refusing to recant her visions. Mini cliffhanger. But the trial that awaited her wasn't about faith alone. It was a weapon of war. The trial began on February 21, 1431. Presiding over it was Bishop Pierre Cauchon, loyal to the English cause and eager to see Joan discredited. The court was stacked with pro-English clergy. The charges were extensive, claiming divine visions without church approval, wearing male clothing, defying church authority, and, most damning, insisting that God had commanded her to lead France against the English. Over the next 3 months, Joan endured nearly daily interrogations. There were over 70 formal questions, some designed to trip her into heresy. She was often questioned without legal counsel and pressured to answer quickly. One famous exchange went like this: "Judge, do you know if you're in God's grace?" "Joan, if I am not, may God put me there. If I am, may God keep me there. I would be the saddest creature alive if I knew I were not in his grace." This answer stunned the court. It was theologically precise, showing a deep understanding of faith. The judges also focused heavily on her choice to wear men's clothing. Joan explained it was for protection in a military environment, but they framed it as defiance of biblical law. They grilled her about her visions, St. Michael, St. Catherine, and St. Margaret. She never wavered. She described the voices as more real than anything she had ever heard, guiding her every step. In truth, the trial was less about theology and more about politics. If Joan's visions were false, Charles VII's coronation, secured by her, could be cast into doubt. But even after months of pressure, the court couldn't get what they really wanted: a confession. The trial took a dramatic turn in late May. Joan, exhausted and fearing for her life, signed an abjuration, a statement renouncing her visions and promising to wear women's clothing. But within days, she was found again in male attire. She claimed the guards tried to assault her, and she put the clothes back on for protection. The court saw its chance. This lapse meant her earlier recantation was void. She was now a relapsed heretic, and the penalty was death. The sentence was swift, and the execution even swifter. On May 29, 1431, Joan was declared guilty. The next morning, she was led to the old marketplace of Rouen. Eyewitnesses described the scene: thousands gathered, some jeering, others silent. Joan wore a white robe and a paper hat marked heretic, relapsed, apostate, idolater. She asked for a cross to be held high so she could see it as the flames rose. Tied to a tall stake, she prayed aloud. As the fire was lit, she called the name of Jesus over and over until her voice was lost in the smoke. Soldiers who had mocked her now wept openly. One English soldier reportedly said, "We are lost, we have burned a saint." When it was over, her ashes were scattered in the Seine to prevent the collection of relics. The English had hoped to erase her memory. Instead, they had created a legend. But the final chapter of Joan's story would be written by those who survived her. In 1456, 25 years after her death, Joan's family petitioned the Pope for a retrial. By then, Charles VII had consolidated his power, and clearing Joan's name was politically useful. The retrial examined testimony from over 100 witnesses, soldiers, townsfolk, clergy. The conclusion was unanimous. Joan had been wrongly condemned. Her original trial was declared null and void. Centuries later, in 1920, the Catholic Church canonized her as Saint Joan of Arc. Today, she is a national heroine of France, a symbol of faith, and an enduring figure of resistance against injustice. So, martyr or witch, the Church and history have answered martyr. But perhaps the deeper truth is that Joan was feared by those in power, and fear has always been the deadliest charge. If you believe Joan's courage still matters today, share your thoughts below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into history's most famous trial, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an untold story. This is History Replay this day.